Hey everyone, this is my review of the Hurry Up Tomorrow movie. As a big fan of The Weeknd, I just want to say take a lot of what I say here with a grain of salt. I am going to try and be a bit critical on this movie, but I'm going to have a bit of bias, just how it is. In terms of how big of a fan I am, you can see on screen now all of my vinyls. So yeah. First of all, I just want to say, spoiler alert, I'm going to be going over a little bit of what happens in this movie. If you're, a movie critic, movie fan, don't be alarmed, because, we'll get into it. Right off the bat, I gotta say, this is a movie for the fans. Movie critics, casual movie viewers, common folk, I'm sorry, you are gonna hate this movie. This movie is gonna bore you to death. You will not be able to enjoy this movie, and you will probably fall asleep in the movie theater. I'm just gonna get that out of the way. I told you I'm not gonna try and mega glaze this movie. You will fall asleep if you are not invested in who The Weeknd is or anything about him. Just so you know, this is a kind of biographical movie in a way. It's about him as a real person, but it's in a fictitious setting, I guess. He plays himself as an insomniac version of himself, where he is having these visions and nightmares, and eventually he loses his voice on stage and cancels the concert, and he meets this girl who's played by Jenna Ortega, and she kind of mentally and psychologically torments him to get him to open up about who he is and accept what he is, basically. All of that is supposed to, of course, tie into his most recent album of the same name, Hurry Up Tomorrow. Like I said, this is not a movie for casuals. You really need to understand a lot about who The Weeknd is and what his music is about, especially this new album. There's moments, and I'm going to get right into the spoilers. There's moments like, for example, a scene where he gets knocked out by Jenna Ortega, and he has a dream, and in the dream, he is in an elevator, and he gets jump scared, and then after he gets jump scared, he ends up in this, freezing cold temperatures with his younger self sitting at the campfire, and all of that is completely irrelevant to anything that's happening in the actual plot of the movie, which we'll get into the plot in a second. And that is all stuff that you really need to understand the context of the album and who The Weeknd is as a person, aside from his music, to really understand what's going on there. As for the plot and the connection that it has to the plot, like I said, it's very minimal, the connection to the plot. The plot in this movie, it is so slow. Ooh, it is so slow. And on top of how slow this plot is, the entire first act of this movie, which I'm going to say the first act is kind of the setup act, which all movies, the first act is the setup act, but this movie really makes it a setup act, and there is almost no dialogue at all in the first act of this movie. The first hour of this movie is all visual storytelling. You really have to focus in on the visuals of the first act, and if you don't care about songs that he's made and you don't want to look into the message of them, God, you are going to be so bored. There is an entire scene where he goes on stage and performs an entire 5-minute long song. If you saw the fan event like I did last night, the entire movie, the entire intro to the movie is just a music video that's 5 minutes long. This movie, it is painfully long how long these music moments are. As a fan who likes the music, I think it's great, but I will say it was very annoying when the song would be shoehorned into the movie. There's a scene, especially in the beginning of the movie, the first 30 minutes, it plays, the song at the beginning before the movie starts. It plays Hurry Up Tomorrow, the title track. And then you get into the movie and he performs Wake Me Up on stage. And then right after that, it plays Cry For Me in the intro credits. And then right after that, Jenna Ortega is listening to Open Hearts with a weird Baptized in Fear collaboration version on the radio. And then in less than 20 minutes after that, he plays Wake Me Up again. And I thought that was really weird that they played so much of the same song. And then the Hurry Up Tomorrow song, he plays it 6 different times in the whole movie, which is fine, but I really think if this movie released before the album and there was no context as to what the album was about, this movie would have hit a lot harder for me in terms of, the fan service aspect. But I want to circle here to the acting here. The acting was something that I think a lot of people were worried about here, especially if you look at The Weeknd's track record with The Idol. Oh, Jesus. I think he has significantly improved in his acting. A lot of people are still saying that it's not good. One scene in particular I saw people talking about was this scene where he's in an argument with Jenna's character. I'm going to be honest. I don't really see what they're saying. I think his acting has significantly improved, and then sometimes he even steals the show here in this movie, like especially in that ending scene and the bathtub scene. Jenna and Barry, to be honest with you, mainly the reason they don't steal the show is because they don't get that much dialogue or character development. And I think that is intentional because they're kind of supposed to be part of Abel's psyche and less actually a character in the movie. But it's still weird that they both get kind of a backstory and at least get to talk about their backstory. And I don't know. Very weird. Very, very weird. And on top of the acting, I just want to say there is a bit of like odd self-gloating in this film, very similar to kind of the theory with The Idol of how, like the self-insert of The Weeknd makes himself out to be such a dick sometimes.
I'll fucking drag you down, Rodeo, while your fucking ass just fucking stomp you. I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I won't lie, he kind of does the same thing here. I think it's a bit more tasteful than The Idol. The Idol was definitely a distasteful series, but he does definitely have a bit of self-gloat here. Like, there's an entire scene, which, mind you, I actually really like this scene, but if you're not a fan of Abel and you don't really care about his music, you're going to definitely see this as self-gloating, where Jenna just kind of plays his own music to him and just explains what his song is about to him. I saw a comparison from this YouTube channel where they compared it to the scene in American Psycho where he plays the music before he kills the guy.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
I think that's a great comparison. And this scene is played out to be kind of funny. Like, she's kind of like dancing with it and explaining what it's about in kind of this funny way. And I think she does a great job here. And I think this scene is really good. A lot of people probably are hating on this one. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm assuming it's definitely going to happen. But I'm a fan. I really like this scene. I thought it was good. And I think Abel and Jenna both act pretty well in this one. On top of that, I want to talk about the visuals. Wow. Trey Edward Schults is not a director I'm super familiar with. I've seen It Comes at Night, and I thought the movie was okay. I didn't think it was incredible. Thought it was fine. I haven't seen Waves. I definitely want to check out Waves. But I'm not super familiar with Trey, and wow. I saw this movie expecting a visual, stunning visual, because that's just what his music videos are really good at. And from the clips and the trailers and stuff that I've seen, I was definitely a big fan of what it was doing. And I think Trey Edward Schults absolutely delivers a beautiful, technical masterpiece here. Plot development, some people are going to say, oh, but that ruins it. And personally, I really like the plot. And I'll talk at the end about why I was a big fan of this movie and why it connected with me. But going back to those visuals, man, they are just absolutely stunning. And on top of that, the sound design is the other thing I want to mention. The technicality of this movie, the sound mixing is incredible. Hearing some of these songs, especially Wake Me Up, is what did it for me in the movie theater, was absolutely incredible. I'm going to blame Mike Dean's absolutely great Dolby Atmos mixing for why that song sounded so good in IMAX. I got to see this on the XD screen, so that made me really happy. And that was kind of how I felt about that. So overall, I would say this movie was good. As a huge fan of The Weeknd, I gave this one a 5 on my Letterboxd. But I understand from a more critical standpoint that this movie is, I would say, deserving about a 3-star or a 2.5-star maybe. I think there is some great depth to this movie, and people are gonna say, oh, but the self-gloating and stuff is really not for me. If you're not into these kind of slower paced, well shot and visual storytelling movies, you're gonna hate this. And if you're also not a fan of The Weeknd, you will probably hate this movie. No wonder it has a 16% or whatever on Rotten Tomatoes. Overall, though, I was a fan. The biggest strength for me is definitely the connection it has to young artists and just the general music industry. As somebody who's going to college to study music, and specifically music business, and wants to make it big in that world, This absolutely resonates with me on that level of being a struggling musician. I get it. And I think even some lines directly talk to people like me. There's a specific line from Barry where he says something about a TikTok comment being mean and negative and whatever that's got him down. And I was like, wow, that really connects with me, because when I get, more rude, less constructive comments, it kind of, it resonates with people, especially lower scale creators like myself. So I understood where this movie was coming from, and I thought the self-gloating was tasteful in this movie. I didn't think it was out of character and unnecessary. So overall, like I said, casual fans, you will hate this movie. Movie critics, you will probably hate this movie. But if you're like me and you're a big fan, or if you're like me and you're a young artist, then this movie will absolutely resonate with you. And lastly, I just want to say W. Trey Edward Schults for putting Without a Warning as the final song on this masterpiece of a movie. Visually masterpiece of a movie. So yeah, I'll see you all next time. See ya.